This is Higher Free Chapter 2. In this chapter we're going to be going over recurring decimals and exact calculations. Exercise 2.1. Here we're going to be covering recurring decimals. Now recurring decimal is when you have decimal numbers that repeat. Now question 1, we see 7s repeating. So this is 0.7 recurring. Now another way of writing this would be 0.7 with a dot on top. This means 0.7 recurring. Now to turn this into a fraction, the first step is going to be let x equal to 0.777. What we're going to do now is find two numbers that have the same recurring decimals. So the same number repeating constantly. So we can take the 2 away to get rid of the recurring decimals. So what we're going to do is multiply the x and the right hand side both by 10. When we multiply by 10, we're going to get 10x equals to 7.777 recurring. Now here when we look at the decimal places, they're all align. All the 7s align, and it means we can take the 2 away. So we're going to do 10x equals to 7.777 minus x, which is 0.777. So you have to make sure everything aligns. We're going to take this away. We're going to get 9x over here, and that's going to equal to 7. X is going to equal to 7 over 9. And this is how you represent a recurring decimal as a fraction. Question 3. Here we have 2.181818. Another way of writing this would be 2.18 recurring. Now the 1 and the 8 are the repeating numbers. So we're going to put a number above the 1 and the 8. If you had a number like 1.415415 repeating, you would write this as 1.415 and a dot above the 4 and the 5. You will only use 2 dots. So whenever a number is recurring and the numbers that are repeating, you will put a dot above the start and the end. So back to question 3. So we're going to write down let x equal to 2.18. Now we're going to multiply both sides by 10. We're going to get 10x. That's 21.81818. Now the decimal places don't match, so we're going to keep going. So now we need to work out what 100x is. So we multiply this by 100. So you move the decimal 2 places to the right. We're going to get 218.181818. Now here the decimal places, they all align, they match. So we can take away 100x and x. So we're going to do 100x equals to 218.181818 minus x equals to 2.181818. 100x minus x is 99x. Now all of these decimal places, they all cancel out, so nothing's left here. 8 take away 2 is 6. 1 and 2 come down. So x is going to equal to 216 over 99. Now we can simplify this fraction. So 216 and 99 can both be divided by 9. So 216 divided by 9 is 24 over 11. Convert this into a mixed number. 2 and 2 over 11. This is exercise 2.2. Here we're going to be going over exact calculations. So question 2, given that 3,700 times 4.8 equals to 17,760, we're going to use this to work out the value of 37 times 0.48. So whenever you do these questions, you have to start with original. So we're going to write down 3,700 multiplied by 4.8 equals to 17,760. And then we have 37 multiplied by 0.48. And what does that equal to? Now, how do you go from 3,700 to 37? You divide it by 100. So we're going to do divide by 100 here. And 4.8 to 0.48. Again, we're doing division, but by 10 this time. So you're doing divide 100 and divide 10. So essentially what you're doing is dividing by 1,000. So you move the decimal 1, 2, 3. 3 places to the left. So 17.76 is your answer. Question B. Here we're doing 1.776 divided by 37. Now this is basically a rearrangement of what we had originally. So we're doing this divided by this to get this. So you're doing 17,760 divided by 3,700. And that should give us 4.8. And below you write down the question. So 1.776 divided by 37. From here to here, we move the decimal 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 places to the left. So we're dividing by 10,000. 3,700 to 37. You divide it by 100. Now this situation is a bit different from the previous one because we're doing division here. So the rules are a tiny bit different. Now because of this divide sign here, we're going to change what we're going to do to the 4.8. So the first divide by 10,000, it stays the same. And the next one, the divide 100. Now whenever you have a divide, then another divide over here, the divide and divide become times. Times 100. Now if you think about it, if I was to have a number 2 and I times it by 10 and then divide it by 10, essentially the divide 10 and the times 10, they cancel out. So if I was to have a number like 50 and I times it by 10 and then divide it by 100, so if I do 50 times 10, that's 500, divide it by 100, that's 5. So it will be simpler for me to just cancel out the zeros from the times 10 and the divide 100, and that becomes divide 10. So over here what we're going to do is cancel out the zeros. So for every 1 0 here, you can cancel out 1 0 here. The only reason we can do this is because we have a divide and a times. So for every 1 0 here, you can cancel 1 0 here. So overall, what we're doing is just simply dividing it by 100. So you're going to do 4.8 divided by 100. That's going to give us 0.048. Question 8. We're going to do the same thing as before. You start with the original. So 2,744 over 1.4 squared. That equals to 1,400. And the question is 2,744 divided by 14 squared. Now here the denominator, or the divisor, it changes. What we're doing here is timesing it by 10. Now because the number itself is 1.4 squared, we're not just going to be timesing it by 10, we're going to be timesing it by 10 squared. because remember it's 1.4 squared, which means 1.4 times 1.4. So there's two 1.4s. And it becomes 14. And remember, it's not just 14, it's 14 squared. So that's two 14s. So that means there has to be two 10s. So we have to times it by 10 squared. Now because we're dealing with the denominator, that's a divisor. So divide and times is essentially just divide. So you're going to divide 1400 by 10 squared. And that's going to be divided by 100, which is 14. Now the next question. Remember, start with the original. You have 2744 over 1.4 squared. That's 1400. Then you have 27.44 over 1.4 squared. Now the numerator has changed. We're dividing it by 100. Denominator hasn't changed, so this number here is just being divided by 100. So the answer is 14 again. Now the next one, you have 2744 over 1.4 squared. $274.4 over 0.14 squared. Now we're dividing the numerator by 10 and the denominator is being divided by 10 as well, but we have to write 10 squared. So our answer is being divided by 10, and because we're dealing with the denominator here, the divisor, this divide and this divide essentially make times. So times 10 squared. So 10 squared is the same as 100. So if I divide it by 10, I get 140. Times it by 100. Just put 2 zeros at the end.